that was going on long before y'all got started. Now, here it is. We are at the 150th commemoration of the reading of the Emancipation Proclamation in the United States. Just because the Emancipation Proclamation was read in my county in South Carolina, Port Royal, Island, town of Port Royal, Beaufort County, South Carolina, 150 years ago, the Civil War still was going on. Ain't nobody was just free just because. Gullah Geechees at that point were already on their same plantations they had been enslaved on, but now were owning land because why? A great deal of that land had been auctioned. Many times you see it in the news now, folks fighting their own family members in an heirs property case. All because of that land we've had in the family since 1862, 1861 in some cases. But 1862, that was when major auctions took place, 150 years ago. But yet the Civil War was still going on. So here it is that when the Civil War ends, 1871, 6 years later, it's a different thing for Anglo people than it is for, quote, black people, then called Negro, then called freedmen. Reconstruction is happening when in 1871 the U.S. Commission on Fish and Fisheries was established by Congress. We had voted people into Congress. In that first Reconstruction Congress, we had voted people in there. We had some sort of voice. But did they talk to us for what they was going to grow into? I don't think so. Because now, you go till 1885, and I find it interesting then that the Audubon Society was proposed in 1885, but it took until last year for me as a Gullah Geechee to become a Together Green Fellow with Toyota and who? The Audubon. I'm the first Gullah Geechee. There ain't no Gullah Geechee Audubon Society no place. So look how far we've come, but how far we have yet to go. Now here it is, 1886, you got the first New York Audubon Society chapter organized. Well, 1904, your teddy bear goes ahead and urges Congress to authorize setting aside certain land, forests, reserves, and public lands as game refuges. Well, 1904, that's Jim Crow era still. Segregation. So when this is going on, I can guarantee you, these are not Gullah Geechees, these are not African Americans, these are not black folks, these are not Negro folks, these are not freedmen, these are not people of African descent in America that are in this discussion. And they're not members of the Audubon. So now, in the early 1900s is when this whole refuge system started, when we're dealing with Jim Crow, where one side of people are trying to say, y'all ain't never had no reason to have been freed in the first place. Get on back there. Know your place. Feeling that we're out of place, trying to engage in the political system. So how can we get involved with y'all wildlife refuge system when we can't even get in the system of America at all? We're not at the table here. So now, 1966, the National Wildlife Refuge System Administration Act actually comes into being and establishes where we are today. That is 100 years after the first Civil Rights Act in America. 1866 was the first Civil Rights Act in America. 1964 was the second one. Hotlanta. When y'all are like the civil rights capital of the world for the United States history of civil rights, even though it happened all over the place. Let's be clear. The Civil Rights Act, often celebrated here, was the second one. But why did you need a second one? Because what must I have with the first one? Nothing. We are 50 years right now. This year, people are commemorating 50 years since the desegregation of schools and 150 years since the Emancipation Proclamation. And some scholars are saying, and we still might need another kind of act. I say, we have that act already. We have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And if we all used it, if we all engaged in it, if we all made a living practice, there wouldn't be gates at all. Because we'd have so much respect for each other. You wouldn't need to gate yourself off from other folks. But we're not in that world, huh? I'm in the utopia. Because I come from a place where I can still leave my door open and nobody don't go in there and take nothing. Ain't got nothing to do with them knowing all them guns I just unloaded on their table. But a place where I can sit out on the porch and little kids can run around out there. Ain't nobody bothering them. We just tell them, watch out for snakes. Go on out here in the yard, watch out for snakes. I still live in a place where we know one another's names. We know when so-and-so just had a baby. We know when so-and-so husband ain't come in at the right hour, he should have been in on it. And I can still go to one of the elders and say, you know, what kind of tree is that? Let me see. Yeah, I let a pick last year. I used to use that back in North so-and-so, but you know, it used to grow all around tree young. Ain't there so much on no more. And they said, well, why not? They said, I ain't know. And they start talking about the herbs, the herbal healing, and how I used to just go in different places to gather them. But they say, you know where we used to gather them? They tell me we can't go in there no more. What if it's still growing in there? But then we start looking at the dynamics of what scientists are calling climate change, and we say, well, some of what used to be here and here because of that. But we know a lot of the other stuff that used to be here got paved on when somebody made a tennis court. Got paved on and built over when somebody put up a clubhouse. Got paved over and built on when somebody put that hotel down there and built it right up into the marsh. They wasn't thinking about the oyster beds then. They wasn't thinking about what needed to protect that shoreline. When we came to the meetings and said, hold on, you shouldn't allow that because that's going to damage the whole waterway and you can't, oh, you Gullah Geechees are just emotional. We were told that, right? Now, they love the emotional Gullah Geechees and they say, we need your traditional knowledge. That's what they call it. And say, can you come with your traditional knowledge and tell us what could be done? Well, if you had listened to us, we wouldn't have to have this discussion now. Because now we're at a point where resources, environmental resources have been so depleted and people's cultural energy and wherewithal has been so minimized. And there's been a barrier between for so long that sometimes we don't know if you come in to give me a ticket because of the equipment that I ain't even using, all right? Or if you come in to say to me, no, I really would love to learn about the equipment your people use and how maybe we could use it as well, because it has minimal damage on the environment. Because when we go back in time and we look at old sketches from Harper's Weekly, the area that we're here to protect now, wow, it looked an awful lot like that when it was just y'all living here. I have people in my family over 100 years old. So when I speak to you, I speak for them. I've lived through stories with them. They can point things out to me and say, Gal, all this here used to be an area you could go out there seeking. All of that, we used to go on yonder and go fishing and thing out yonder and get your Austin and thing like that, and get your mullet from down in there. Good hole back there, Gal, you want that. But you know one thing, you want that drumfish, that don't have to go on further. You know, you have to go on further. But now you have to know what's the line, the federal line versus the state line, because that person might climb on board your boat. So we now have the Gullah Geechee Fishing Association that I'm proud to be a founding member of and the secretary of, that wants to work with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, would like to open dialogues, and we started to with departments of natural resources in those 4 states, so they understand that when we cast a net, ain't dry long so anything like that. When you cast out a wide enough net, you can throw in all kinds of things. Something you throw back. And so I'm really praying that the net that David and I got in a boat together and rowed out and decided that we would cast, and that you all drew me in to bring me up these your mountains into Hotlanta to talk to you, to celebrate a month that is such an honor for me, because I have been on earth long enough to remember when it was Negro History Week. All right? We celebrated Negro History Week, which encompassed President Abraham Lincoln's birthday and Frederick Douglass's birthday. 8 because it's the shortest month in the calendar. All right? And eventually it became Negro History Month. Later it became Black History Month. I still hold to that title because that encompasses all people of African descent around the world when you say Black History Month. And people do celebrate it elsewhere. not just in the U.S. anymore. And Dr. Carter G. Woodson, God bless his day, his vision was for people to get understanding of the global contributions of people of African descent, not just the ones in North America and in America's part of North America, but all the contributions. And so we don't want to limit it to here, like so many other things have happened, because then we're gating it on. We're gating off those stories. Those stories don't get shared. We don't get to know one another, and we don't get to get the full view of what everybody has contributed and how our peoples have worked with other peoples to keep this land protected and to keep a legacy going on in spite of the odds against it. Because as you heard that little lineup of dates right there, we've come far, but we still got a long way yet to go. So I'm hoping that the rest of this journey in the next 150 years will be that somebody will arrive, see that sign behind, but not just say it's land protected back here and it's a good place for birders to come and look, but that there are people who are historians who love black history that will go in there and say, yeah, you know what, Gullah Geechees lived here. And these are the very things that they did on this land as well. That this was their refuge when they went out spiritually into the wilderness. That this is a place that even yet now their family reunions come back to because it is home. And that it is the place that when they then walk up and they see the sign and then they see the person bearing the same emblem walking toward them, they walk toward that person too and say, well, how long did you do? Instead of saying, oh God, here it is. So definitely, this next y'all cast to draw me in, I'm now casting one to draw y'all back to the Gullah Geechee Nation. I'd love to be able to journey with some of y'all, I might bring my gun, to the woods, some of the places where you all are in charge of, to actually see what is still in there. Because I know there are tabby ruins in some of them. And tabby was something our ancestors created, you see. There are stories there, there are things I'll see that you'll walk right over and never realize what it is. That's why we need to work together. So that in the next generation of people that wear that emblem, they have more than stories about the songs the birds chirp to tell the business. And so, I definitely, tomorrow, I'm working with the Ace Basin. And who here is charged with working on the Ace Basin? Anybody? One person? We need because we have a living shoreline grant that we've got. And so we're doing work to restore the oyster beds along the Ace Basin area. And I live right there at the Ace Basin, which is the Ashapoo, the Combahee, and the Enniston. So again, those names, not just the Walk-a-Mall and all those, they connect. And just like that basin was a place that in Gullah Geechee family you would go, wash your face and don't eat. You know, get yourself together before you wind out children. I'm ready to say, we have opened a basin now where we can wash our spirits together and then get a shout one to say that this year we come out the wilderness together, leaning on the Lord. But working together, children, because we can't get rid of it. Because this year we great camp meeting, and this your promised land. So now, my sister going, I know you would do it. That's too bad. Don't worry. Y'all gonna get the shelves. They've been holding it. Yeah. So we want to open up both the floor here and the telephone line for calls. And this is a blessing to me, to hear that this is the largest crowd y'all have ever had for any program in the building. Because, so now I got to tell them this when I go to D.C. to get my other water and say, I shut it down, y'all! I shut it down! I shut it down! You're standing for all! I have my bouncers at the door! Right! My brothers are holding it down! Right. So yeah, this is wonderful. This is a wonderful way for me to start my Gullah Geechee Gold Soul World Soul for the year. To see all of y'all start flooding in and folks getting to the door talking, wow, like at the club, wow, yeah. On in there, and the room on. So now, any questions, comments? Sharon, it's my brother, yes. What's your name? Keaston, all right.
Truly an honor. Truly an honor. I can't thank you enough. I know people who would be very, very interested in learning, especially, you know, through this kind of medium. So I don't know if you have any sort of audio or visual, any sort of information that you can provide that they would be,
They could access.
Yeah, they would be honored to access it.
Excellent. Well, I see a lot of folks came in here with no paper, pad, or nothing. A handful did. Some folks ran up in here with their cell phone and stuff. I know a lot of y'all got your tablets and other things. I'm going to give you a couple of websites. And this is a way to access things immediately. If you go to YouTube, there's actually Gullah Geechee TV, Nayshun News, yes. Gullah Geechee TV, Nayshun News, or you can go to Gullah Geechee, GULLAH.TV, and that's a way to see me every week. In fact, portions of this will show on Gullah Geechee TV, Nayshun News, because you find a lot of students wanting to be able to access information, but Gullah Geechee families want to. So wherever I travel in the world, we do Gullah Geechee Nation News. So there's a whole bunch they can watch there. Our blog is GullahGeecheeNation.com. GullahGeecheeNation.com. So you will find videos there, you'll find audio, and Gullah Geechee Rhythm Radio. You can download it on iTunes. But it's also there if you go to GullahGeecheeNation.com. At the top, you can click for Gullah Geechee TV. You can click for Gullah Geechee Rhythm Radio. You can access those. And then here, I do have audio CDs, and I have DVDs that are on sale, as well as several books that I've written on the history of Gullah Geechee culture. So if anyone wants to actually bring me to a space to do these types of presentations, just go to Queen Quet, and Quet is Q-U-E-T, which y'all probably know because I'm all over the building, right? QueenQuet.com, and they can email my office and we can connect. I would love to be able to do that. Yes, ma'am.
You spoke earlier about the relationship of the Gullah Geechee people with the indigenous Native American people and together working. Can you tell me a little more about that relationship and what it is now?
Oh, definitely, definitely. She wanted to know, wanted me to elaborate further on when I mentioned about the indigenous peoples and their relationship with the Gullah Geechees. Well, as I mentioned already, the Afro-Seminole or the Black Seminole, when you hear them speak, you will hear the people who are in Oklahoma, Texas, and Mexico speak Gullah, but it will sound different. And as I often point out, the people that are called Black Seminoles that are out west, they speak what we might call Old Gullah, like how you have Old English and you say today's American English. They speak Old Gullah versus those of us who remain on the coast here, that we speak one that also evolved over time. And Gullah being the language that still has African words, African syntax, African phonetic structure. Geechee became a bridge language or pidgin, really a dialect of Gullah when we started interacting with English-speaking people. And we needed them to try to understand what we were saying, like, you know, you always have a little hard time. All right. So when we get together with the family members, we're still connected to them. I have gone and traveled the world to reconnect the Gullah Geechee diaspora. I've been in Canada because we've had people up there in Nova Scotia from the War of 1812, and they still have people there. I've been to the Bahamas and had a great deal of fanfare whenever I come to the Bahamas, because you have a group that live on what they call the family islands in the Bahamas that escaped during the transatlantic slave trade time, chattel enslavement. They're there, still speak Gullah. So this has been a way to reconnect everyone. So with the indigenous peoples, when you hear of the Seminole Wars, the reality was that there was one man that finally wrote the truth about what was going on. His statement that you could find, because they didn't want to report on this to the colonists, that this was going on, that actually the enslaved were uprising, they kept trying to tell him it's the Indians that are killing us. He finally wrote, there are more Negroes in this war than there are Indians. So with my book, and that's the one book we don't have with us, The Legacy of Igbo Landing, there's a section called the Gullah Wars, because it points out that it was actually the indigenous people of the region, along with the then enslaved Africans, who were actually the ones who fought that war for over 40 years. And that's how come many of them after a point, started to migrate westward and ended up out there, and then some later also in the Trail of Tears. So the reason we ended up in Mexico is because when the Afro or the Black Seminoles or some of the Seminoles settled out there, then slave catchers were sent behind them. So they went across into Mexico. And so they ended up in a place called Nacimiento. So in Nacimiento today, many of them have been displaced again because the water started to dry up, and they were still agrarian people the same way they had been where we are on the coast. So because the water started drying up, they can't farm. So a lot have migrated. The young people have migrated to try to find jobs and other things. And so their citizenship status is blurry. The U.S. doesn't remember them as citizens, and Mexico said they ain't never been citizens of ours. So they're caught in the middle where they like to come over here and come back and see people and reconnect, and then they can't because they can't get a visa to get out of Mexico. But then, because they're saying the U.S. they really belong to y'all, but then the U.S. are like, no they don't, because they've been over there, they're Mexican. So it's a really complicated thing. But we do have an ongoing relationship, fortunately, that has encouraged the elders. Because a lot of elders are in their 90s, and they thought when they died, that would be it. None of the young people would know who they were, wouldn't know where they had come from, or anything. So I usually go to their Seminole days, and when I get there, they light up. And they're like, thank you. Because if the young people look at you and see what you're doing, bless you, they'll know they can keep our culture alive. Yes?
I may not say this right, but how is your royalty status?
How is my royalty status? That's the interesting way you phrase that. Do you mean, how am I royalty, or what do you really mean when you say, how is my royalty status?
Queen.
Yes, I am.
And how was that achieved?
Okay, got it. So that's what I thought you meant. She wanted to know, how did I become Queen Quet? That's usually how people ask that question. So what took place? In 1999, I became the first Gullah Geechee to ever speak before the United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland, at the Human Rights Commission. Prior to that, I had formed an organization called the Gullah Geechee Sea Island Coalition, which has fought for the rights of Gullah Geechees, for their land, human rights, and so forth. Well, before I was going to Switzerland, many elders along the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida started saying, we're being displaced, we got to do something, we're losing our land, this is ridiculous, we got to come together in some kind of way. If we do that, we know the work you've been doing, would you be the leader? And you know, we'll come up with some title, but will you be the leader? I said, well, y'all know I don't need no title or nothing. Whatever you need done, you know, I'm willing to do it. Okay, we ain't asked you that. Gullah Geechees in the room, yeah. Right? Okay, that's how our people are, very direct, especially the elders. Okay, yes ma'am, yes sir. I understand, you did. All right, we asked you, and it went back. Then I said, okay. I said, we're going to do an election or something. We're going to figure out how to bring all the people together. Will you be the leader? I said, okay. If God ordains it, and the people want it, definitely, that is what I'll be doing. They said, all right. They got advice and counsel from NGOs that were in consultative status with the United Nations. We found that as a linguistic and ethnic minority, we had international human rights declarations and laws that should apply to us. They said, well, you can only do it if you got to have a body of some kind to be able to address these issues, and you would need a leader of their bodies. So they put together a petition called Who Speak For We? The head funded body of the Gullah Geechee Nation. That petition now went around physically throughout the Gullah Geechee, what is now the Gullah Geechee Nation, at events, church meetings, under the oak tree. I mean, this thing was all over the place. And they also had it online for Gullah Geechees in the military or anywhere else to vote. There was a one-year-long election that took place to elect me. The final ceremony to confirm the election was held at Sullivan's Island, which is federal property. It is part of the National Park System, Department of the Interior. It was held there, one, because of what I told you earlier in terms of our history of our ancestors coming through there by force, but this time we were coming back there by choice. And two, so the U.S. federal government couldn't turn around and say they didn't know I had got elected as a queen. Okay? So, U.S. federal government folks were there as observers, UN folks were there as observers, and national and international media was there. So when they brought me chained from the shore, The same way my ancestors said, come up there. And if anybody remembers Vibe magazine, and you have a copy with Janet Jackson on the cover, if you turn inside, I'm on the inside of that magazine, with the picture of me chained up, and the title over it, Strong Islanders. And when they brought me in chained, I'm telling you right now, I have no idea to this day how all those thousands of people got up there. Because when I was out there in front of the sand dune, them people weren't there yet. And when I came back, it looked like 15 minutes later. I don't know if they had buses, planes, dropping people in or what. But here it was, I literally learned what throngs of people meant. Because as I'm walking, there's just people. And there's the drummers, there's the ensigns, there's the dancers, there's the elders, and they're all surrounding me. And when we got to the center, where all kinds of things were, the baskets, the nets, all these things that represented our culture were laid out in a circle, and all the people were around in a circle. I heard one woman say, let her go. Let her go. Let her go. Because there had been that much singing and shouting and all this, and you could just hear all these languages of the world. And all of a sudden, I dropped on my knees. And I remember when I dropped on my knees, the chains dropped off. No one had time to come over like they had locked me up at the shore to unloose anything. And when the chains dropped, everyone just started shouting. I mean, shouting, 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 shouting. None of that holding back, holding down. And so then they called for the confirmation, whether or not people agreed with the vote. Or you heard, yes, yes, clapping. Then they called for who didn't agree with the vote. Wasn't anyone. So I'm now in my second term as a chiefess and head of state and an official queen mother, because that ceremony was also an official installment ceremony, which is an African traditional ceremony to also elect you as a spiritual leader. So both as a political voice and a spiritual leader as a head of state. In this case, I'm both a queen mother and a head of state. And so that's the journey that got me to this, how did you say it? How did my royalty status? So all I wanted to know that. Yeah.
I'd like to thank you for bringing your voice.
Oh, 1 minute. What's your name?
Me?
Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Elizabeth. Okay. What's your name? Jennifer. Okay.
I'm glad that you brought the voice, my voice here, because I can just understand I've been misunderstood for many years.
For a long time.
For a very long time, because you are who I am.
Yes,
and we have that direct
connection.
that
Right.
link. And I just remember one thing you said when I was a little girl, going to the school system, they said, talk wrong.
Yes.
Hear that. And they said, you will not speak that way. I would
Yes.
hear that all through elementary school. It was sort of like they just beat it
They
out.
literally beat it out.
You will not. You will not. Wrong, wrong, wrong.
Right.
But every time I hear just the song and just the melody and all the just turns and curves, it just brings me right back. It just brings me back to my grandmother's house and the things that we would do out in the country, as we would call it.
Yeah, the country.
And the open land and just walking through and pulling things off the trees and everything was there. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. I know exactly what you've been through. And when she mentions it beat it out of her, and y'all heard me say literally, I mean literally. Corporal punishment was still issued to a lot of us in school. Well into the 1980s, I know students who were getting beaten because they spoke up in school to get you to stop speaking. And when I said that, I thought people had finally stopped and got some understanding. I found out from a young lady, she had graduated in 2000 or 2004 or something, that she was told by a teacher he would not allow her to go into the honors science class. He said, because it's not for you. She said, her and four other students. She said, what do you mean it's not for us? We make A's and all that, but it's not for you. She said, what do you mean? Well, you all won't speak proper English, so you can't go in that class. It's not for you. So this education process still has to be ongoing, because there's still a lot of people who do not understand. We have a separate language and a separate tradition and culture, and language and IQ have no equivalency. It has nothing to do with either. Yes, ma'am.
And
My shout boy.
you know,
I got to come back here.
well, my relatives were from my relatives are and are still from Beaufort, South Carolina. So we used to do the Gullah. We used to do the Gullah festival. And when I was yes, and when my
Who's your family?
The Jenkins and the Washingtons.
Oh, plenty.
Yes,
Oh,
Jenkins
okay.
County. And so when my relatives would come into town, like different people, because they couldn't really understand them. So as you was talking about Great God, my Aunt Helen, who were over in the Somerville, Sumter area, even Hilton Head, and a lot of the Gullah people were in those areas, and then they made them into all of these nice Hilton Head spas, gated areas. So I understood you. So I am you, you are me.
Oh, yes,
I
ma'am.
feel
We
you.
were shouting. Shouting up in there. We gonna talk later about your family. And who your family?
The cheese,
From where?
South Carolina, the coast of South
I
Carolina.
know that. Because I saw you. From the first word I said, these two. They back here laughing like this. Y'all ain't understanding. They over here. Yeah, I saw that, definitely. Any other questions? Comments, sharing?
We have a room full of administrative professionals, engineers, biologists, contractors, managers, I'm sure have all been moved. Our awareness has been raised. The awareness, I don't want us to leave it as a simple self-interest. Well, that was interesting. I read the National Geographic magazine.
Oh, right. I got you.
You know,
Yeah.
I just hope people feel motivated to action, for whatever that means for you. And speaking as just an agency, you know, we have 12 national wildlife refuges and other fish and wildlife offices, and then other responsibilities, stewardship responsibilities in that part of the country. And you know, I always like to think of examples. You know, when we go back out for the comprehensive conservation plan review for a refuge, or maybe it's a habitat management plan in a partnership. We go out to services terms. Let's reach out in a targeted sense to the Gullah Geechee Nation. You know, we mandated by law to reach out to Native American groups. You know, you target certain partners and landowners. We need to remember the Gullah Geechee people. When we think of outreach festivals and events, you know, why would we not include the people from the area? An invitation to present or to be a part of. You know, look at engineering folks. You know, we'll be replacing kiosks and signs and buildings over time. You know, do they all have to be Eurocentric? You know, we try to represent the low country architecture that came from London. You know, can we not, in an environmental education pavilion, consult with our Gullah Geechee brethren and design it consistent with the culture? Examples can go on. You know, as we update visitor centers and you know, little informational kiosks that greet you in front of the closed gate. You know, can we not have an interpretive panel?
Can I get a ring of keys? Can I get a ring of keys, please?
You know, an interpretive panel. You know, we interpret the songbirds of the area. I think we're doing a little bit better job with some of the other cultural resources. My gosh, you know, we're in the core area of the Gullah Geechee in so many of our stations. You know, can we not have an interpretive panel that isn't, you know, National Geographic, yes, but challenges people to learn more about the people and explains the relationship and stewardship for the land. So the possibilities as an agency are great. But Queen Quet, you spoke to us more as more than just agency officials. You spoke to us as citizens of this world together, and I was just so moved. And on behalf of everyone, want to thank you very much.
Thank you. And all of what you said, I just want to give a word of caution too, because there is also the federal corridor that you mentioned. And so people who are in federal government, I know you tend to do the easy thing. Just talk to some more people in the federal government. That does not mean you're talking to us as Gullah Geechee natives. There are a lot of people, there's people who are commissioned to do stuff with Gullah. They're not Gullah Geechee though. And just because they look this color doesn't automatically mean they're Gullah Geechee because they're in South Carolina or North Carolina or Georgia, Florida either. And so we have a problem that we thought we would get over because we thought that by working with certain government agencies, they would understand what you said. That just like you bring in tribal leaders, as they say, when you talk to indigenous groups, you would bring in the Wisdom Circle Council of Elders and myself to do things and talk and sit down at the table. I studied engineering. So when you say the word engineering, I'm all over it. I studied engineering at Virginia Tech. And so I'm like, ooh, engineering. Yes. Can I get to work with the engineers? Who in here is an engineer anyway? Oh, you're up to nine the whole time. Oh, yeah. So, you know, when you say that, and then sometimes folks get scared, because you might say the word engineering now, like the Gullah Geechee fishermen, oh no, that ain't our thing, y'all go ahead on. But I could get them to come to the meeting and say, no, because they actually want to talk to y'all, because they want to design some stuff, and they want to talk about the use of the waterway around this particular island. They need your input. Then they would come. But that's been, again, you know, those boundaries have been there so long. Those gates have been shut for so long. Some people are not trying to enter. So people in academic institutions, they're used to it. So they'll just go in and la-di-da. But they give you the perspective from slavery, not after that. They always want to give you when we were in a rice field, but they don't want to get you out of the rice field. And they don't want to get you to today, and they don't deal with the time in between. So again, you know, y'all have my websites, you have my email. At any time, I'm willing to work with you.
I just had a quick, if you have any thoughts.
What's your name?
Aaron.
Aaron, and what's the name? Terry. Terry, all right.
Like, you know, you tapped on Rox's shirt that with her insignia, she's not part we, because that insignia is other and somebody different.
Yes.
One of our big pushes and something within the service we're aware of is we have to look and be part of the culture of the people where we work. How do we get
How do you
our
get to
Gullah
do that?
people in that shirt so that shirt is worn by we instead of others?
See, I love that idea. They like when I come back saying we got jobs and money. They like that. Yeah, what we got to do? All right, you know. But yeah, it's an important component. I'm glad you asked. First of all, is Gullah Geechees have to even be aware of what does it take to work with you, okay? And how can they get engaged in the process that would allow them to enter the system if they wanted to. And then they're going to want to know, do I have to leave home? Like, can I, if I live up the road, if I live in Arndale, can I get a job at Cape Romaine instead of you trying to send me to Taiwan, or you try to send me to Santee? You know, because your government people is like military, GS, whatever, and all that in the Park Service. I don't know how y'all rank it here, but you can move. So a lot of Gullah Geechees don't want jobs like that because they're like, if I want to do that, I'd join the military. You know, they like to stay close to home. So if there's ways that maybe we can do some youth engagement where they can know how to do internships that forward them into jobs, the Gullah Geechee Sea Island Coalition would love to work with you or anyone here to start doing that, you know, throughout the 4 states. But then also to engage some of the adults who may already have qualifications for things you have open, but we don't know where do you list your jobs. Like, do you list them on the federal registry? Wow, you really think we read that? You know, maybe if you email this to the Gullah Geechee Sea Island Coalition, we could publish it in our newsletter, our e-sign, to come, and then folks could then apply. So that's the biggest issue. We never know, you know, that there are even jobs. We don't know how you get in the game.
We have trouble with that too. We have an incredible recruitment staff here in the regional office.
Okay.
They've been wonderful to work on.
Definitely. I would love to do that. And if we could set up other, I don't know if y'all have this, do you also have any types of community training programs where, as you were just mentioning as one example about having the kiosk, but you also mentioned festivals and programs and bringing people in. Are there any community engagement programs? Something I've done for over 27 years now is give the Gullah Root Experience tour. And so something I'd really be interested in is then being able to work to bring folks into these refuges, but from a Gullah Geechee perspective, including your staff. And like take y'all around and let y'all see what we see. Not for you to tape it to then try to imitate it later. But then you have that process too. I think that would be something. Because then people live their story and they feel that it is us. It's ours, it's we. So everyone in the community becomes a steward then of that place. As opposed to saying, no, we don't go there. That's theirs. Any others? No? Good? All right. Great. great. And I'm sorry the folks got cut off on the phone line, but that is definitely an honor to know that you had the folks that are in supervisory capacities and administrative capacities, even where they are, want to tune in and listen today. So I'm sure I'll get emails from y'all if they email you and have questions or input or comments. I'd love to see, and I would definitely love to hear from them and work directly with them, because the Gullah Geechee Sea Island Coalition is grassroots. So we connect you direct to the people. We know how to get that mullet and thing. And fish fry. So at some point, you know, hopefully y'all can do a trip, you know, a field trip, and come out to us, and we can kind of share our worlds together. I would love for you to do that. Yeah. Well, I definitely thank Sherry, I thank David, I thank everyone here at the office who did all of the work I had to, and where my two girls that drove me here? There they go. My chauffeurs for the day. Thank y'all so much. We had such a wonderful fellowship coming over. I wish the ride was longer. The next day we were pulling in 1875. I was like, ooh, what year is that? What was going on with that? That was the first thing on my mind, because I knew what I was going to say when I got here. But it definitely has been a blessing being here, being in this building. I'm a person that loves nature, loves animals. So I could have just snatched down all your posters as I was walking through the building to take them home. I love it. And so definitely Ron is here with me and Kumar today. And so we'll definitely be taking the word back, because as soon as I call my mom on, she's going to know how to go. So I'm going to let her know all the Gullah Geechees that was here, everybody. And so I'm sure this won't be the last time that we all get together, and hopefully we'll be here again, but definitely come to us. And as I always say, and which is our motto for the Gullah Geechee Sea Island Coalition, Hunter must take care of the root for heal the tree. So I pray today that I've given you some tools to dig a little bit deeper, and that we can bring the stories of all people up to the surface, and we can celebrate them not only behind the gate, but in front of it, on the signs, and with one another. Peace and blessings to all of you. Enjoy
Mm-mm.